Ina Garten is a celebrity chef whose home cooking, charisma, and mouth-watering dishes have won her millions of fans. Behind the character and #039's pleasant exterior, though, is a tragic backstory that has a profound impact on her life. Through this investigation, we will uncover the hidden side of Ina Garten, the Barefoot Contessa, a lady whose tenacity and determination in the face of hardship have served as an inspiration to countless. A native Brooklynite, Ina Rosenberg. Raised in a Jewish household by grandparents who moved from Russia, New York was the second-to-last child of a Jewish family. The daughter of a nutritionist named Jane in Florence was born to Charles H. Rosenberg, an otolaryngologist. Her father and #039's abuse made for a difficult upbringing. When she thought back on her childhood, she remembered how her father loved her but how he ignored her unique individuality in favor of conforming to his standards. Despite facing challenges in her personal life, Rosenberg achieved academic success and cultivated a love of science, which in turn shaped her culinary style. Her mother, an opera buff and thinker, discouraged her from a career in cooking and instead encouraged her to pursue a degree in academia. Garten said her dad was very good with people and that she had more of his personality traits than her mom did. Even though they were first skeptical, her parents eventually came around to her dreams of becoming a chef. She visited her brother at Dartmouth College when she was 15 years old, and that and #039's where she met her future husband, Jeffrey Garten. She went to Syracuse University for her undergraduate degree in economics and then to George Washington University for her MBA. While serving in the Vietnam War, Ina had an interest in cooking and hospitality after her marriage to Jeffrey on December 22, 1968, in Stamford, and the couple relocated to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. At the same time, she became a licensed pilot. Following Jeffrey and #039's military duty, they set out on a camping vacation around Europe for 4 months. Where Ina and #039's love for French cuisine was sparked during a visit in France. Her return to her roots led her to choose the outdoors, markets, and fresh vegetables as the cornerstones of her future enterprise. Mastering the Art of French Cooking, a trilogy written by Julia Child, Simone Beck, and Louisette Berthold, provided Ina with the foundation she needed to continue honing her cooking skills thereafter in the United States. Shortly after relocating to Washington, D.C., Cheryl started throwing dinner parties weekly beginning in 1972. The rise of Ina Garten from beloved home cook to celebrity chef begs the question, how? At the Nation and #039's capital. While Jeffrey was working at the State Department and earning his Ph.D. from Johns Hopkins School for Advanced International Studies, Garten was working at the White House. Having started her work at the Federal Power Commission, Garten later became a budget analyst at the White House Office of Management and Budget. During her time as VP, she drafted nuclear centrifuge policy documents for Presidents Carter and Ford and was in charge of creating the national budget for nuclear energy. On the OMB and #039's. On DuPont Circle in Kalorama, she bought and contested Queen Anne-style mansions while honing her culinary and hosting abilities. She invested the proceeds from her real estate ventures into her second venture, a gourmet food boutique called the Barefoot Contessa. In 1978, Garten left her job with the government to open a 400-square-foot grocery store in West Hampton Beach, New York, which she called. It probably wasn't an #039 in sync with her core staff, but she still thought it was thrilling and exciting. In contrast to the traditional approach, she discovered that her marriage flourished whenever she and her husband sought greater personal autonomy. She bought the business, moved to New York, and put in as many as 12 hours a day on occasion. An Ava Gardner film from 1954 inspired the store and #039's name, embodying a harmonious combination of understated sophistication that harmonized with Garten and #039's own style. By 1985, she had expanded Barefoot Contessa from 400 to more than 3,000 square feet in East Hampton, relocating it to a bigger location. With a more stable clientele at her new spot, she was able to expand her gourmet offerings to include things like lobster salad, caviar, cheeses, and seasonal, locally grown veggies. Steven Spielberg and other famous people were big fans of Barefoot Contessa, which helped propel the brand to stardom. Garten gave the business to her employees in 1996 after 20 years, but she retained the land and established an office above it. Garten spent her time away from the food industry researching the stock market and thinking of new company ideas. When Barefoot Contessa started selling her wares online, her website took off. The store shuttered that same year owing to lease concerns, despite being featured in the movie Something and #039's Gotta Give in 2003. A rag and bone shop has moved into the building by the year 2024. After 1999, Garten decided to pursue writing as a career. Her debut cookbook, the Barefoot Contessa Cookbook, was a commercial success, surpassing even Joan and #039's hopes. Among its contents were her store and #039's recipes and over 100,000 initial copies, which had to be reprinted after the first 5,000 were gone. Her critically acclaimed 2001 album, Barefoot Contessa Parties, and 2002 follow-up, Barefoot Contessa Family Style, were both issued by the same label. Nominations for the James Beard Award for Best Entertaining Cookbook went to the Barefoot Contessa Cookbook in 2000 and Best Special Occasion Cookbook went to Parties in 2002. In contrast to long-established chefs like Jacques Pepin, Garten was a relative newcomer to the scene, thus the nomination for Parties came as a shock. She was going global to promote the ideal and popular Garten cookbooks, which have beautiful photographs of each recipe. Her publications have been well received, despite criticism that they omit necessary instructional processes in favor of photos. The fact that celebrity chef and TV host Giada De Laurentiis listed Julia Child and #039's cookbooks among her favorites in 2005 says a lot about the influence Garten has had on the culinary world. By 2023, Garten had written and published 13 cookbooks, with over 14 million copies sold. These recipes are packed with calories and fat. But The New Yorker, the reigning American queen of butterfat utilized with finesse, has praised her for this and her most recent nickname. Garten has been both praised and criticized for her work. Her 2010 cookbook, Barefoot Contessa, came under fire from the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. So simple, ISN and #039, it? For the purpose of advertising high-calorie, high-cholesterol recipes. They ranked it as one of the year and #039's 5 worst cookbooks because of the harmful components it contained. Launching an argument over the culpability of cookbook writers for advocating better dietary practices. Highlighting the conflict between unhealthy eating and scrumptious cooking, the critic is supposedly targeting cookbooks that go beyond lentils. Regardless, Garten and #039's cookbooks guide home chefs through the changing dialogues about food and health with visually appealing and delectable recipes. How, therefore, did she take her career to the next level? Ina Garten rose to stardom in 2002 with the debut of her Food Network show, after having already been famous through her cookbooks and television appearances. The network approached Garten about starring in a cooking show after her books and parties were successful. Ina had trouble keeping up with the large crew and strict schedule during her 2000 collaboration with Martha Stewart and #039's production firm. But when Pacific, situated in London and known for Nigella Bites, offered a less stressful environment with a smaller crew, she jumped at the chance. Because of this, Barefoot Contessa was able to make a triumphant 2002 debut. Nearly 1 million people watched each episode of the show that featured Garten, her husband Jeffrey, and their friends. It was nominated for Best Service Show at the 2005 Daytime Emmys and helped the Food Network and #039's ratings. Garten received her first Emmy in 2009 for her role as host of the show, which also received nominations for Best Culinary Program. She also promised to write 2 further cookbooks after Barefoot Contessa at Home and inked a 3-year contract with the Food Network that year. Reportedly, at the time, this deal was the most lucrative one for a cookbook author. Regardless of the many proposals to launch a magazine, furniture line, and other extensions of her brand, Garten, who liked to keep things simple, turned down offers of cookware and a store that were akin to Martha Stewart and #039's empire. As a hobby, Ina could even pen the 2023 New York Times bestseller Barefoot Contessa, Go to Dinners, which went on to sell over 800,000 copies. Be My Guest, Ina Garten and #039's 2022 return to television, aired on Discovery and the Food Network, was her 3rd series overall. The show and #039's host visits the homes of famous people on the show. Prior to that, in 2006, she and her partner Frank Newbold launched Barefoot Contessa Pantry, a line of prepared foods, marking her return to the kitchen. Working in tandem with Stonewall Kitchen, they preserved the flavor while making Garten and #039's home-cooked meals more easy and accessible. Coconut cupcakes, maple oatmeal scones, mango chutney, and lemon curd are all part of the Barefoot Contessa pantry range, which offers a sense of home-cooked cuisine. For example, the brownie mix costs $10 for a single package, which may explain the higher prices of other products. But the superior quality of the goods more than made up for the astronomical prices, positioning them as a class above the others. Stores like Crate and Amp, Barrel and Sur La Table carry these items, as do restaurants like the Fox and Auble Market Cafe in Chicago. In keeping with the show and #039's ethos, this new venture expanded Garten and #039's business and #039's product variety. Great cuisine is easy to make, tastes great, and even those with little time can make it. Garten not only ran her company, but she also authored several acclaimed cookbooks, such as Barefoot in Paris. Her work for Oprah and #039's magazine also contributed to her popularity by providing guidance on party planning, cooking, and hosting cookouts. In addition, Garten was a regular contributor to House Beautiful and #039's Ask the Barefoot Contessa section from 2007 to 2011. Providing guidance on entertaining and living, establishing herself as a reliable authority in the realm of home and hospitality. Ina Garten built her reputation beyond her cookbooks and television appearances by releasing a line of notecards and diaries that brought her fans closer to her culinary philosophy. By offering items that mirrored her belief in the happiness that comes from making memories with loved ones and sharing recipes, she was able to strengthen the bond she had established with her audience. The Tate and #039's Bake Shop Cookbook by Kathleen King and Dishing with Style by Rory Trovato are just two of the many cookbooks that Garten has introduced. Garten showed her ambition to create a healthy meal preparation system and help other people do the same by babbling about other chefs. Her prominence as a major figure in modern cooking was greatly enhanced by this act of goodwill. Her mastery of the best American recipes from 2005 to 2006 lemon roast chicken with croutons is just one more example of her talent as a chef. Instead, both amateur cooks and gourmets raved about how good this dish was, despite its lack of fancy components. She continues to prove that she provides everyone with easy and delicious dinners by having one of her favorite recipes included in Today and #039's Kitchen Cookbook, which features the top dishes from the popular TV show The Today Show. When Garten and #039's Thanksgiving dishes started showing up on Google and #039's homepage in 2010, she instantly became famous. Because of this, nobody saw how she changed the face of contemporary cookery and holiday entertaining. Garten chose to jump on the digital bandwagon in June 2012, when she turned 18, by starting a Facebook blog where she shared recipes and her own experiences. The message was well received, and the account gained over 100,000 followers in just 3 weeks. The fact that she was able to capitalize on the fast development of social media, connect with fans and others interested in food, and experience rapid growth is evidence of this. In 2019, Garten and #039's famous potato lax recipe was included in Goodnight Bubala, a children and #039's picture book, thanks to her connection with writer Cheryl Haft. This partnership showcased Garten and #039's commitment to ensuring that the pleasure of cooking is transmitted to generations to come, making sure that generations of families might savor her beloved recipes. Now a household name, Ina Garten has done a lot to motivate other people to follow their dreams in the kitchen. Garten explained that her decision to forego motherhood was influenced by her childhood in an interview she gave to BBC News in 2023. She expressed her desire not to repeat the incident. It is worth mentioning that her need for connection led her to pursue a profession that brings people together through food. Many of my decisions originate in my formative years, as I frequently discover when I reflect on my past. In my opinion, that was their main motivation. Her spouse. Similarly, Jeffrey Garten has a proven track record of excellence in both academic and government settings. He served as Undersecretary of Commerce for International Trade under President Bill Clinton from 1993 until 1995. Jeffrey transitioned from politics to academia after serving as Dean of Yale University and #039's School of Management from 1995 to 2005. He was a major influence on the development of management theory and the careers of aspiring company executives. Even when he and hashtag 039's not working, he and hashtag 039's always lending a hand to Ina on her cooking reality show by offering advice. Enjoying tasting the food that Ina prepares. Because they were honest about their relationship and shared a passion for people and cuisine, they were able to display substantial poisonous on-screen banter that thrilled viewers. The fact that the Gartens are always on the go from their Manhattan and East Hampton residences to their Paris flat demonstrates their gastronomic, artistic, and imaginative tastes. Republican Jeffrey is a registered voter and has contributed to a plethora of political campaigns. Among the politicians he supported were Barack Obama, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, and John Kerry. Although he is an active member of the political party, Ina seldom ever discusses politics. In an interview conducted in the year 2024, he made the statement, end quote, and hashtag 039, I think I would not make people change their minds, and hashtag 039, end quote, regarding Ina and hashtag 039's other job, she served on the East Hampton Design Review Board, where she oversaw architectural plans and worked to ensure that the village remained as picturesque and historically accurate as possible. In addition, she has a memoir in the works titled Be Ready When the Luck Happens, set for release in October of 2024. In light of these terrible obstacles, how did Garten bravely overcome them? When Ina Garten thought back on her youth, she remembered her father and hashtag 039's authoritarian authority and the harsh discipline that entailed. Her father and hashtag 039's view that parenting was not about being loved ran against to Ina and hashtag 039's developing desire for autonomy, in contrast to the nurturing parenting styles of today. She drew on memories of times she felt physically threatened by him, which made her seek refuge in her bedroom. Even though she meant well, Ina and hashtag 039's mother had difficulty establishing meaningful relationships and probably wanted to keep Ina out of the kitchen so that she could have some personal space. Because she kept herself apart as a child, Ina said her childhood was lonely. Her mother never admitted guilt, even though she and her father reconnected after he repented in his own manner. Ina now realizes she followed in her parents' and hashtag 039 footsteps by not standing up for herself because she lacked the confidence to do so. She met Jeffrey, whose warmth and unfaltering support showed her a way out of her self-critical life, and she was determined to change her ways. Thanks to Jeffrey and hashtag 039's upbeat attitude and constant support, Ina was able to follow her dreams. Their deep bond persisted even though they lived apart during his time overseas. What kept them close was their ability to support each other. Their decision to forego having a family freed them to pursue their passions. Through the fact that Jeffrey consistently puts Ina and hashtag 039's dreams ahead of his own. Despite her reputation as a go-getter when it came to cookbooks, Ina Garten broke her silence in one of her books about a time she was briefly separated from her husband Jeffrey. Thinking back on the 1970s, she recalled how difficult it was to break the mold of the stereotypical husband-wife relationship and form a more collaborative one. At first, Ina found it annoying that Jeffrey assumed she would be in charge of the kitchen while he dealt with the money. The action that helped them both in the end was her insistence that he pay attention to the imbalance. Following her initial summer on the job at the Barefoot Contessa boutique, the State Department sent Jeffrey on a 3-month foreign tour, while Ina went back to Washington. While separated, they each had the opportunity to reflect on their lives and mature as individuals, re-evaluating their responsibilities and the level of autonomy they desired inside their partnership. At first, Jeffrey found it difficult to go on lengthy journeys as a couple. However, in the end, they reorganized their relationship into a partnership that prioritizes cooperation and mutual respect over conventional norms. Jeffrey always encouraged Ina and hashtag 039's goals and brought a cooperative attitude to dispute resolution, according to Ina, who characterized their relationship as peaceful. She saw that this strategy rendered his arguments more difficult to counter. During a critical juncture early in their marriage, Ina recalled Jeffrey and hashtag 039's earlier encouragement for her to discover her life and hashtag 039's purpose. His revelation that Ina couldn't and hashtag 039 be happy unless she knew where she was going changed her outlook. Up until that point, she had married an exceptional man, and that had been her main objective. Ina is eternally thankful to Jeffrey for changing her life and hashtag 039 trajectory when he first advised her to seek anything on her own. Reminiscing on an incident, she said, "Pastisio is similar to Greek lasagna, and I intend to surprise Jeffrey by making it instead of chicken." As she reflected on her sudden ascent to fame, Ina confessed that appearing on television had never crossed her mind. "Why anyone would be interested in keeping tabs on me is beyond me." Eileen, a positive role model from the Food Network, encouraged Ina to pursue the show since she believed in her potential. "I didn't end #039, want her to think she misread my hesitation, so I kept saying no for almost a year. Being a TV celebrity was never in my plans. A friend in #039's recommendation of an Australian show helped me appreciate good production values and the realization that I didn't end #039 have to be Nigella Lawson. Everyone told me to just be myself." The day Jennifer Garner wrote to Ina to tell her she wanted to be on the program was a difficult but ultimately satisfying moment for Ina. At first, Ina failed to recognize the renowned actress. But Ina contacted Garner and they worked together on a scene while they were in Los Angeles for filming. Ina was asked to celebrate Jennifer and #039's 40th birthday, which happened to be a complete coincidence. A laid-back, entertaining affair featuring 40 women clad in sweatpants and ponytails, generating a cozy, calm environment. After Jennifer and #039's appearance on Ina and #039's program, Ina enjoyed the show and #039's comedic tone and Garner and #039's humorous reference to Barefoot Contessa in her own cooking films. Her incredible journey from a struggling chef to a household name demonstrates the power of dedication and self-sacrifice.